What's up, guys? I tested out the Copper 90 mod, so-called mod, in my pond today. Long video, but I'll tell you the trouble right now and tell you that it doesn't work. It's a myth, just like everything else you see on these stupid Facebook pages. Test setup was to duplicate the failure, which is the bike shuts off when it's warm driving in the water. Did that 3 times to show that I could repeat that failure. I installed the Copper 90 and again heated up the motor, backed it into the water, and it stalled all 3 times. So it did not fix the issue. I noticed it was slightly harder to start up underwater with the Copper 90 installed, probably because the extra restriction of putting a 90-degree bend at the very tip of your exhaust pipe. Also, it seemed to not idle underwater as well with the Copper 90, again, probably because of the extra restriction. So best case scenario, it does nothing. Worst case scenario, it actually reduces performance, and it also makes your exhaust sound even worse on a Honda. So I don't recommend it. I think it's dumb. If you want to argue with me about it, feel free, but I'm going to roast you unless you have your facts straight and you did some kind of test that employs some logic like this. I'm not interested in your opinion that it works, because just like, your opinion that your 420 can turn 30s, no one cares.
All right, so if you guys have been on any of the Facebook pages or forums or whatever, you've probably heard about this really stupid thing called a Copper 90 mod. I bet I asked questions about it too many times, so I'm finally going to test it. This is a Copper 90. It's exactly what it sounds like it is. So the idea is, this is a 1-inch. You stick it on your exhaust tip, and that's supposed to help it idle underwater. Now, does it? I don't know, but we're gonna find out. So we're gonna go over to the pond, and we're gonna sink this sucker and see if this makes a difference. The idea is that it diverts the exhaust downwards and creates a little air pocket there, which will help water not come up the exhaust at idle. Polaris and some other manufacturers use exhausts that look kind of like this from the factory, so maybe there's some merit to it. It definitely will make it sound different. I've heard bikes running it. If you're going to run this full time, obviously you want to scrape up and clean both surfaces and JB weld it on there. I'm just going to press it on for now. Hopefully we won't lose it. I got this on Amazon. I will post a link in the description. It was like, I don't know, $7. But yeah, this bike doesn't idle underwater super great. I found that most newer Hondas, newer meaning low hours, when the bike's newer, the engine's tighter, the tunnels are tighter, that cold water hitting the engine, contracting everything, makes it harder for it to idle underwater. Once you get a very broke-in Honda, like this 300 for example, they idle underwater a little better. The pond is really deep right now. We've had a lot of rain, so should be an opportune moment to test this sucker out. So this engine's pretty cold. We just fired it up, and we're gonna back it into the water and see if it shuts off. Not touching the throttle, we're just letting it gravity pull it back in. All right, exhaust is under. This thing should die out at some point. It's got a bad history of not idling underwater. Come on, go back farther. All right, I gotta put it in reverse. Oh, it's already in reverse. Still idling. Also, I'm risking damaging my bike to make this video for you goons. So I'm gonna make it purposely die out underwater, which is not really a smart thing to do. Man, it's idling pretty good. Let's go deeper. Well, this is gonna be a hard thing to test if it actually just, oh, it's floating some. So coolant temperature is now low. That's pretty deep. So apparently I don't actually need a Copper 90 on this machine. So the other thing I've noticed with this bike is if the engine is hot and you hit the water real fast, that also makes it want to die out. So we might have to get it warm and then drive it into the water. But let's see if we can't find a way to make it die out. If I get the RPMs to drop down, let's put it in like 5th gear. And if I give it a little bit of gas in 5th gear, that should kind of bog it down, right? Die! Why won't you die? It's just driving out in 5th gear. This thing has stalled out underwater plenty of times. Interesting. We can go a little deeper, but I know the pond drops off right behind where I'm at. Oh, man, the front is floating. Back's not floating though. It's pretty far under there. And it's idling just fine. How annoying. I can't test this out if I can't duplicate the failure first. It's part of troubleshooting, you know? So if I hold at normal operating temperature, 2 bars, the fan is cycled a few times, so it's warmed up. And I'm gonna quickly back it into the water and see if it'll stall out. Okay, it stalled. Okay, so all we gotta do is repeat that 3 times, and if we can repeat that 3 times, and then it doesn't happen once with the Copper 90, I will say I like the Copper 90. So to start it back up, because it's a Honda, you just cycle the key 3 times, pop her in neutral, and she fires back up. Hot engine, idling for 10 minutes, fasten the water. And it stalled again. That's what I'm talking about. So 3 times in a row it died out without the Copper 90. Now we're gonna try with the Copper 90. Let's see how long it takes to blow off. Oh, and it still stalled out. Shocking. Not really. All right, so what did we learn? We learned that most of the information on the internet is stupid. The reason these Hondas stall out underwater is not because of back pressure. Therefore, the Copper 90 does not help. Oh, let's see if we can get it going again. So now that we got it running and it's cold, I'm gonna back it in there just to see if there's any adverse effects to the Copper 90. And don't worry, we'll repeat this test 2 more times because repeatability is key. Oh, look at that. It's cold and it's stalled out underwater. Copper 90 is still on there. Let's see if it'll idle. Huh. You know what? I think it might be worse with the Copper 90. Yeah. So I'm not saying that there's no situation where the Copper 90 might help you run underwater. There's some situations, but the main problem I have with these Hondas is when the engine is warm and you hit the water, something happens. I don't know if it's pressure in the airbox or what. I don't understand it. But when your engine's hot, you hit the water, it stalls out. Once you drive around the water for a while, that problem goes away, it idles underwater. Copper 90 does not fix the major issue this bike has idling underwater, and therefore, myth busted. Test number 3, Copper 90, very hot engine. Fan just kicked on. We're gonna put it in 4-wheel drive and back it into the water quickly. If it dies out, this officially proves it's a joke. It stalled, in case anyone's wondering. That's 3 times in a row. The Copper 90 did not keep my bike from stalling out at idle, backing into the water. I'm gonna back in there again real deep now that the engine's cooled down. That's pretty deep. I'm staying on the gas for a minute to let it all get to, you know, that nice cold temperature that the water in the pond is at. Now let's let off the throttle and see what happens. Oh, it's gonna stall, I feel it. And it stalled. Stalls with both the Copper 90. It stalls with a hot motor and a cold motor with the Copper 90. So let's yank this sucker off. That is a perfect fit. It's hilarious how well that fits. And let's see if it'll still stall out the same way. Four-wheel drive light's flashing, gotta clear that. Copper 90 is right here. We're gonna go to the same depth and see if it'll idle underwater. What do you guys think is gonna happen? So I'm gonna kind of ride the brake a little bit. You guys think it's gonna stall? What do you think? Look at that! It's idling better without the copper 90.